Yeah. No, just one large cheese. No, she's bringing
it.
She's bringing it to my house, so you don't have to worry about. Oh, I gotta go. Hang on. Hey, everybody! Welcome to the Resistance broadcast. I'm John. Thank you so much for joining us. You go live. Sometimes you're on an important phone call, and I won't disclose what that was, but it was important. I'll tell you that right now. We have a great show for you today. We're talking Acolyte because this show. Let's do the math. When does it debut? June 4th?
June 4th.
So if I 15, 19 days away. See, you beat that math, folks. 19 days away from as we speak right here. Brand new live action Star Wars coming at us. 2 episodes of The Acolyte to kick off this series. We have a lot to talk about because there's another new TV spot. There's a behind the scenes featurette that one of the official international outlets of Star Wars put out that people were like, well, were they supposed to? Were they not? But either way, I'll get into why that has me the most hyped out of all the stuff we've seen. And then we're going to actually, Lacey, we're going to revisit an older article where Leslye Headland's talking about the Acolyte now that we've seen this footage, and maybe try to do a little bit of detective work ourselves, because the show itself is a bit of a detective story wrapped in this mystery. So first off, how are you doing? And don't ask me any questions about that phone call. You cannot know about it, and that's all I'll say.
You're going to be really upset when a trailer comes out the day before the premiere that Yoda's in. You're going to be very upset, and I'm going to be sitting here laughing, and I'm going to be like, and it's going to be like a TV spot or something real casual.
TV spot, real casual. Like what? Like,
what do you mean, like what?
Like on cable? That's going to be on a commercial during like a sporting event, like a quick little thing, and Yoda's going to be in it all of a sudden now for your sake? Get out of here.
Lucasfilm, you know what you have to do.
The best part is it's not people are asking me, they're like, what kind of pizza you're going to get or so. It's not about the pizza.
John
it's
just has cheese. Let's get this straight. You only eat cheese pizza.
Well, no, I don't. I will eat like pepperoni, and if I go to someone's house, I'm not gonna be rude. I'm gonna eat what they have. But if I'm ordering a pizza, I order a cheese because that's a pizza. Like
you know what pizza I'm bringing, John? A Hawaiian pizza. Because we didn't specify what type of pizza. We just said pizza.
Yeah, I hope your SUV likes wearing marinara, because that's exactly where that pizza is going. Hawaiian pizza at my house. But no,
I shouldn't have said that. I should have just surprised you at the Hawaiian and called it a day.
Well, so I do. I mean, pineapple's fine. It's the ham thing.
I'm gonna say, can you get me extra ham? Like 3 times the amount of ham that is needed for a normal pizza.
I will make you eat all the ham before you leave my house. And I bet it's be like that gross cubed ham, not even like nice ham. But and for people who may not be privy to this, really,
people are like, what podcast am I listening to right now?
Lacey and I made a bet a month or a couple months back, before the first trailer.
It wasn't even that long.
The Acolyte came out. We bet a pizza. The other person has to hand deliver a pizza to the winner, and the winner is on whether or not Yoda will show up in any of the TV spots or trailers for the Acolyte. So far, no Yoda, so I'm winning. I'm gonna. You know what? We're how many days? 19 days away. I'm declaring victory on the bet right here.
You can't. There's still 2 weeks left.
I think I got it locked in the bag. Even the audience will agree with me. I believe. I think I'm getting a pizza, and it's not about the pizza. I'll give the pizza to someone else. I'll let my kids eat it. Maybe the dog gets some crust. It's about the fact that Gilleran has to get in her car, get a pizza, drive it to my house, walk up the steps, knock on the door, and hand me a pizza. That's what it's about, folks. And I'll be sure to make sure I film this so that it's documented. We'll put it on Patreon or something. But it's all about winning bets. No, it's all about Star Wars, and we're excited, Lacey, right? Because there's a lot going on. The Acolyte keeps giving us these little nuggets. So before we get into anything, we got to thank everybody who's joining us live. If you're joining us live on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/@TRB podcasts, or if you're listening on your favorite audio podcast app, thank you very much for that. So get ready for a good time. Now, before we get into it, Lacey, George Lucas turned 80 this week, and
He did.
everyone took to Twitter and all that stuff to wish him a happy birthday. And it's just crazy to think that, George Lucas is 80, and he's pretty quiet in terms of like what he's doing in his life, and he's always been this like private person. So like when we talk about George Lucas's birthday, sometimes it's almost like always every year it's this sort of celebration of the past. But he's probably like, all right, honey, we're going to Panda Express tonight. We're getting dinner. Like George Lucas is probably enjoying his private life, whatever he's doing. But happy birthday to George Lucas, because obviously without him, we wouldn't be doing this, and none of us would have the wonderful gift that is the Escape to a Galaxy Far, Far Away, the greatest movie franchise of all time. Even though he didn't make it with that expectation, here we are almost 50 years later, right, Lacey?
Yeah, I don't know who I would be, or I don't know where I would be right now without George Lucas. I can't even imagine having that impact on pop culture and just everyone's lives in general. Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So
Happy birthday, George.
Happy birthday, Mr. Lucas. Thank you for Star Wars. Thank you for a lot of things. And if you're listening and watching this, you know his resume. We don't need to sit here and go through it. But we do have super chats available if you want your comments read on the show. And also we're doing Ask the Resistance later in the show, whether it's Acolyte stuff or any other Star Wars questions you'd like us to discuss. Pop it in the chat. Use the hashtag Ask the Resistance so we know it's not just a question for the chat, it's a question for us. And we'll get to those later. But first, we are going to get into the news in our segment called Resistance Report.
It's the Resistance.
All right. Here's the news. First, we'll start with this new TV spot that came out, which they do this where it's from the first teaser, but they add a couple of things to it to throw you off the scent maybe, or just give you a little more to get you a little more excited. Either way, Lacey, did you check out this new TV spot? And we had a little more dialogue, which sounds like it's from Jord Fandar and also May. What were your takeaways from this new TV spot? Did it lead you to any additional speculation or conclusions or aha moments or anything like that?
It did. So this one has been making the rounds a little bit from a couple different people. I think I saw it like early this week, late last week, but it was after we had done last week's episode that I saw it. And it has the clip of the masked bad guy lighting up his saber. And I know we hadn't identified specifically that the person over on the far hill was the bad guy. I had said that that's who I thought it was from our trailer breakdown. And then when he lit up his saber in this teaser, I was like, there it is. I did it. Plus it's always cool to see a red lightsaber. I'm like, all right, here we go. The big question there, is May working with him? Her? Is May just looking to hunt this person down? Is May being hired by this person? But clearly they have some type of relationship, because she showed up to where this person was seemingly waiting for her. I also noticed that little nitpicking from me, but once again, people's faces didn't sync up with the audio in this teaser. I don't know who they have cut in these teaser trailers, but like they're trying to do this like tricky thing where they play one line and then they show a little snippet of someone talking, and you're supposed to make the assumption that like whoever's talking, their voice is from the clip you're seeing. They're trying to make that connection visually with what you're hearing, but the clips they're using are the same clips they used in previous trailers, so it doesn't make sense that like the new quote is the same clip. And there's one clip of Soul talking about how he's like, I must go get her, and it's like a great quote for him in the teaser, but it looks like a terrible dub because his voice doesn't match up with his lips. So I don't know why they keep doing this. I don't know if they're cutting corners with costs or what, but that is something that I'm like having a real big problem with. Other than that, I thought every time I see a lightsaber, I'm super hyped. Can't wait to see these fight scenes going on. I think the tension and drama is building, and we might see some of the best acting in Star Wars from this show with Lee Jung-jae, because he's in these trailers, to me, he's carrying them. Like, you get so many emotions from this guy over the course of the teaser trailer. It's really crazy. Yeah, you're muted.
It's interesting. I had to cough. No need to hear that.
Okay.
I need to see more from him. It definitely seems like, and we'll talk about that behind the scenes featurette next. I just want to keep things separate because that
Sure.
focuses on
I wanted
him
to call him JJ, but we haven't talked about the teaser yet. So I'm gonna spoiler alert, in the behind the scenes reel they call him JJ, and it's
Yeah.
so adorable and loving that now I'm gonna call him JJ.
Yeah. So in this TV spot, I agree. There's clearly some sort of editing misdirection. I have seen. I'd have to go back and look at some of the other Star Wars trailers, but I have seen trailers where it is the person talking, but it takes place at a different time. Or
Well, that's what they all are. That's what they
Yeah.
all are. But
Yeah.
they're just not synced right.
Yeah, because that series of lines from Master Soul about how, she was my student, let me bring her in. In one shot, he's talking to Yord Vander, and in the other shot, he's talking to Vanestra Rowe. So, we don't know who he's talking to when, and that's fine.
They're doing it on purpose. I get it.
This show's supposed to be a mystery, and we've gotten misdirection in Star Wars movie trailers and TV trailers all the time. So it would be weird if the mystery show didn't do it. I just like that, the more we get to see from this, it's triggering more theories. And, I had tossed the twin thing out there a couple of weeks ago when I saw that poster.
Yeah, you did.
That's a possibility because it's, again, I think I talked about this last week. When there's a whodunit story or something with a big twist, and I'll just say there's a certain Christopher Nolan movie that does that, and I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but it came out like 20 years ago. If you can use twins to throw people off the scent, it's a great device for those types of movies. So it wouldn't surprise me in this situation if they employed that. So, but beyond that, Yord Vander still, I still got my eye on that guy because all that Leslye Headland has said about him, Charlie Barnett's character, is that he's sort of like the A student, and he follows the book, and he's like the exact blueprint of what you want a Jedi to be. And to me, like, if I'm Columbo showing up to the Jedi Temple to ask questions, I'm asking that guy a bunch of questions because
Are you?
he's being positioned as this like Boy Scout, perfect example of what a Jedi should be, and I could see them really just like flipping it on us at some point. But again, that's just a wild theory. Who knows? He might just win the nicest best Jedi award one day. And that's
Well, he is at the end fighting the bad guy, so
yeah.
but that could be trying to throw you off, or perhaps it's the bad guy saying, "I don't need you anymore."
Yeah, I mean, we saw Palpatine say he loves democracy, and look what happened there. So
it's true. That's very
so
true.
I thought it was a nice little clip, and I agree. Seeing the lightsaber and then like connecting that to the first trailer where we saw that character, like you were saying, but we didn't see the lightsaber yet. They're showing us a little bit more. They're peeling it back a little bit more, but I think unless you are a supreme confident being or you're Leslye Headland or someone who also helped write on the show, we're all going in quite unsure as what is going to happen. And I think that's a great thing. So I think that's really cool. So fun clip. But anything else on it before I move on to that behind the scenes reel?
I don't think so. I think I know we're about to just go into it. I got more from the behind the scenes reel than the teaser trailer, but I'll let you get into that first.
All right. So I know we have super chats. Do you want to do those?
Sure, we totally can.
Okay.
All right, let's get into some super chats. First up, we have David Ford. Thank you so much, David. He said, working as a PA, I asked Captain Kirk extra, Paul Film, if he was with the Star Wars group, and he said in an angry tone, Star Trek. And I responded, same thing. He snatched up my sign-up sheet with anger. Did this
Did you
actually
talk to
happen?
William Shatner?
Yeah, I think that's what he's saying.
Wow. All right. Hey, that's
All
cool.
right.
Thanks, David. Appreciate it.
Next up is Miles. What up, Miles? He said, "Hi, long time no see." Hello. Didn't enjoy Bad Batch finale. There was no raw emotion, characteristic responsibility, or emotion. Tech wasn't even properly mourned. I mean, there are a lot of emotions for Bad Batch. I was kind of okay with how it ended, but I wasn't as, I wasn't the biggest fan. John, what was your thoughts overall? I know we talked about it a couple episodes
Yeah, we
ago,
talked
but
about it. I thought it was a fine ending. It sort of makes you wonder where they're going to go with Omega and what's going to happen with the surviving crew.
Mhm.
I thought it was fine. Like I said, I thought it was a solid enough ending. It didn't push any envelopes. It didn't leave massive cliffhangers or anything like that. It was like this nice safe landing that if they wanted to pick it up again, they can. And if they wanted to sort of rest there, we can all rest easy knowing that the rest of the Bad Batch sort of lived out this life while still always looking out for Omega. So, but it's not going to be for everybody. You know, I love The Rise of Skywalker. A lot of people think that's the worst movie ever made. So it'd be really
The worst
boring
movie?
if we all had the same opinion about everything. So, you know,
That's fair. That's really fair. Well, Miles,
thanks,
thank
Miles.
you so much. We really appreciate it. And of course, we have Darth Snips. What up,
What
girl? She said, "Just wanted to welcome my mom, also a Star Wars nerd. She is watching TRB tonight with me for the first time. We're super excited for Acolyte. Hey, mom, how's it going? Mwah. Welcome to the show,
Hi, Mrs. Snips.
crew,
Thank you so much
Mrs.
for joining us.
Mrs. Snips,
No, that's
Mama
really great.
Snips.
Yeah, I hope you enjoy it, and thank you so much for hanging out and bonding over watching TRB. Very cool.
Yeah, we love that.
Thank you.
Welcome.
All
All right,
right.
John, get into that teaser. You've been
Yeah.
waiting.
So the behind the scenes featurette, and I saw it shared by Star Wars Underworld. I'm sure other people shared it. They said
Yeah.
that one of the international official accounts shared this clip, and I haven't seen it
It
anywhere
is
else.
currently still up on Star Wars Australia and New Zealand.
Oh, there you go. Okay, so Star Wars Australia has it.
Mhm.
Uh, Sometimes that happens though. Yeah, I
One
remember
day ago.
when the sequel trilogy came out, there was the international trailers which had more scenes. I remember like during the Force Awakens, I was like, I didn't see that TIE fighter shot overhead, on
Mhm.
Takodana. We feed off that stuff. So they put out this behind the scenes clip, and I have to say, this more than anything I've seen so far, whether it's a trailer, TV spot, interview quotes, this clip is the biggest uh hyping that this show has done for me. I really enjoyed what Lee Jung Jae had to say about his character, learning more about him, and what other people had to say about his not only his character but him as an actor. Him talking about his experience with sword work and how it's different using a lightsaber,
Yeah.
but also what this character is all about. So, Lacey, what do you make of this? I'm already saying this is my favorite thing we've seen so far on the marketing trail for the Acolyte. Is that the same for you? I know you like behind the scenes stuff too. So what were your takeaways from this behind the scenes featurette?
Yeah, I'm obsessed with behind the scenes stuff. It's my favorite things coming out of Star Wars movies and TV shows is the gallery series, behind the scene documentaries. I love the process of movie making and the process of creating TV shows and telling these over the top stories. And this reel for me was no different. And I kind of wish they released it earlier. I feel like they're waiting a little late on this one. And I understand like you got to space your marketing out. I totally understand that. But when you're letting your actors sell your show for you like this, it always helps. It never hurts. And to have um the experiences being told through JJ, Lee Jung Jae's eyes. They call him JJ, so I'm calling him that now. Through his eyes, and they let him speak in his language, and they had subtitles on the video. Like that to me was such a wonderful experience to watch because I felt like here we are welcoming him in a way that he could just be himself. Like he doesn't have to worry about like if they're going to understand him or have a translator, do any of these things, which he's done previously. They just let him answer and then told the story that he was telling. And I love that. I also liked hearing about how everybody liked working with him. The thing that did stick out to me, and I actually thought of you with this, John, was when I was watching the reel, Leslye Headland talks about how she was, at the time she was working on the show and writing it, she was watching Squid Game. And when she watched that show and watched his performance, she was like, that's Master Soul. That's him. That's it.
Yeah.
And I know that in the past on this show, we've had a lot of kind of heated debates / jokingly debates about Lucasfilm, and I would say most studios, but definitely Lucasfilm, hiring people that are hot in the moment, whether it be a director or an actor or someone, getting someone involved that might be like the person. And we've seen that with Taika. We've seen that with Patty Jenkins. We've seen that with just like all different types of people. Lizzo. So I was actually very interested to ask you what your thought was. I love Squid Game. Squid Game is one of my top 10 favorite shows of all time. It is up there for me. It was such an awesome experience watching it the first time. I got to go back and rewatch it. I'm pumped they're making another one. He was one of the characters I remember we from time to time have done these like, who do you want to see in Star Wars conversations or Will of the Force? And I have said him for years because of Squid Game. And so when it finally happened, I was like, oh my God, my recency bias has paid off, so to speak. So what are your thoughts on her comments about that in particular? Because I know you're someone that's like, I'm all for up and coming unknown people joining Star Wars, because that's been the trend for so long with Star Wars, is getting people nobody knows.
Yeah, I think it's interesting with Lee Jung-jae because I didn't know him before Squid Game, and you know, he's in his early 50s now, and he's had his own established career, and you hear the other cast members talking about how he does such great work with action. So I got to go back and see more of what this guy has done to prepare myself for this, because a Squid Game was my introduction to him, and it seems like that's what brought him to Star Wars. So that's awesome too, like you say.
Yeah.
Leslye Headland is interesting to me because I never want to judge a book by its cover, but when I first saw her when Russian Doll came out, and I saw her in an interview with her about Russian Doll, I just assumed she was like this pretentious type, like I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm an artist and stuff.
I get that, yeah.
But the more I hear her talk about Star Wars and stuff, she really takes it down to this basic level of what it really is. Like she could be going off and and make this BS excuse as to why she cast Daphne Keane at Jackie Long. You know, her way, you know, the way she moves her hands and the way she speaks with such aptitude. She's like, no, I wanted to, this is an actual quote, I wanted to see X-23 from Logan with a lightsaber. That's why she cast her. That's incredible. I love that.
It's so straightforward. Yeah.
It's so earnest and honest. And it's exactly what like I would do. Like, what do you want to see? It's like, I would love to see that character, but in Star Wars. Like, that's exactly the type of stuff that they do. And it's nice to see one of the creators actually say that and not layer it with all of this, like, acting so difficult and expertise and the artistic approach and the thematics of that person's performance. It's like, no, that guy rocked it in Squid Game, and I wanted him to play on my court. Like, that's basically what we're looking at. So I love that. I love what you had to say there. One other thing about this behind the scenes clip that I haven't seen anybody talk about yet is this show is going to have some really cool space scenes. Like him flying through whatever that debris was. It looks like there's going to be some sort of a cool chase scene or action sequence, maybe similar to what we got in Andor with Luthen Rail. Like, we didn't get a ton of space battles in Andor, but the ones we did were so throwback to like Star Wars concept art, and it was very cool to see and well executed. And if Acolyte, you know, one of the early quotes from Leslye Headland about the Acolyte was she was inspired by the Star Wars Atlas. So I think even though a lot of these clips feel very intimate and small because they're focused on all the characters. I think that's done on purpose because it makes us forget that this show was filmed on locations in these varying countries. We're going to see a lot of landscapes. We're going to see a lot of big environments, a lot of different worlds, planets, and stuff.
It
And
did
we'll talk.
bother me though that she did say, "Oh, well, my show differs because of the practical sets," and I was like, "Andor was all practical."
Right. Yeah.
It
And
was a little weird. That's what caught
yeah,
me off guard.
and I get that. But I think the promo that we've gotten so far is actually underhyping the visual element of what we're going to see with this show. I think it's going to be a really gorgeous show, and I think it might end up being the best looking Star Wars show yet. Now, I said that about Ahsoka because I think they looked at what they've been doing with the volume and they made adjustments to make those shows look better. But then you take it back out to these real locations and these big physical sets like Andor did, but you're adding in like the whimsical nature of Star Wars and the Force and all the fantastical things, which Andor didn't really have. So I think you're getting the best of everything. I think this show really could end up being the best looking Disney Plus Star Wars show, which is slightly unfortunate because it sounds like they're pulling back on those now. And it's almost like they finally figured out the recipe and they're pulling back because of how Disney Plus has been doing. Now that might change, but I'm all for a shift in movies anyway. But yeah, in closing, to summarize, like, I love everything I'm hearing about Master Soul. He's going to be sort of that stoic, calm presence, that veteran Jedi, that leadership that they need, unwavering. Like, he is our tried and true good Jedi. So I don't think you can have too many of those, and that's why I'm a little skeptical about Jord Fandor. But then also, like you were showing on the screen here.
Sorry, I brought the sound up. I wasn't trying to do that.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, that's okay. That's all about being live, baby. But a lot. I think we're gonna get a lot of cool action in space, and I think that's gonna be a lot of fun too because George Lucas always loved the idea of hot rods in space, and anytime we can get some sort of chase scene in Star Wars, it's always a fun time. So I'm looking forward to that aspect of it too, which we haven't seen a lot. So I think Andor is going to surprise us quite a bit. I think a lot of people are hyped at this point. This behind the scenes clip has piqued my hype. This is the best thing I've seen so far. I think they are underselling it, and I think that's a good move for them to do that, and it's going to be a hell of a ride.
Can we talk about these bugs? I saw these when I was looking at it before. That's disgusting. And
So
it is
like,
it looks like a cockroach that's like stuck on the tree. It
also
looks like my nightmare.
It also looks like, do you remember that South Park episode with the lice? This looks like they might be like on the head of something, and all those trees are hairs, and those bugs are like ticks.
Oh my
or
god,
lice or
it's
something.
so creepy, right?
Yeah.
Oh god, it really bothers me. And I was like watching this and I was like, is that a bug? And then I was like, oh my god, it's a bug. I hate bugs
Like
so
that
much.
witch like shrunk them down and just like put them on the top of her head, and she's like, and now you must escape.
Oh my god, no. But they're really gross. Yeah, so
Yeah, it
that's
is
really
kind of
gross.
gross. But yeah,
I loved hearing from him. I loved seeing them in action. It was
Mhm.
funny to hear him talk about his lightsaber training because he's like, I've done tons of sword training, and you're like, oh, really? And he's like, lightsaber is totally different. He's like, it's a different type of
Right.
fighting.
Right. Yeah.
So, we've been saying this for months. I know I have. I cannot wait to see what kind of stunt work is in this show because it's going to be insane martial arts type fighting.
Yeah.
They showed in the teaser. Leslye Headland also mentions it about how that kind of makes it separate itself from the other Star Wars films is the martial arts work. Yeah, I can't wait. It looks so good.
I agree. I think if people haven't seen this clip yet, go check it out. I heard some people say in the chat that it might already be on the Star Wars YouTube channel. If it is, go watch
It's
it.
on the Australia New Zealand one. It was released yesterday.
Yeah, check it out. This, in my opinion, is the best thing we've seen so far to promote this show. It really got me excited. But I'm a behind the scenes nerd. So before we get to our last story in the Resistance report, because we have Will of the Force next, and then Ask the Resistance. So loaded show. We're just getting to the meat of things here. I do see we did have another super chat roll in.
Yeah, speaking of New Zealand, our buddy Brendan McLaughlin. What up, Brendan? He said, finally got to tune into a live show. See you in Japan next year. Try not, try not, do or do not. There is no try.
That's right, buddy. I got that right on here.
Can't wait to see you, man. We're so pumped to go to Japan. It's gonna be wild.
Yeah, I'm very excited. So thank you, Brendan, for that. Also, I want to go to New Zealand.
I know, right? And you're not even a Lord of the Rings fan.
Spoiler alert for our Q&A that we're doing live right after this. I think it's one of my answers. But yeah, for everyone who's watching live, if you are a patron, which we hope you are, that's awesome. Thank you. Right after TRB Live, whenever this ends, we're going right over to Patreon and doing our live Q&A where we answer questions about anything. It could be about not just Star Wars, about life, our memories, things we like that isn't Star Wars, food, whatever, vacations, all good stuff. So check it out, patreon.com/TRB podcast. And Lacey will let you guys know a bit more about Patreon in a minute. But Lacey, the last story is actually us going back in time. So Star Wars allows flashbacks now, so do podcasts. So there was an article from March with IGN, and Leslye Headland is talking about the Acolyte and what she used to that inspired it from Star Wars. And she referred to like all the different eras. So she talked about how she wanted a prequel aesthetic because it is coming out of the High Republic. And the next thing after this that exists in canon is the prequel. So it makes sense to bridge the aesthetic from the High Republic to what the prequels were like. But she also points out her love for the griminess and the old school Star Wars original trilogy cantina stuff. So she wanted to have her own cantina scene. And since this interview has come out, we've seen a trailer, we've seen multiple trailers, we've seen clips, and now we're starting to connect the dots on some of the things she's saying, which includes inspiration from a story perspective. And she brings up Clone Wars, the original finale of the Clone Wars, The Wrong Jedi, being an inspiration for this. Now that's all about Ahsoka being wrongly accused and put on trial for something Barriss Offee did, committing murder and crime, and it led to Ahsoka walking away from the Jedi because they didn't necessarily believe her. So I find it interesting that Leslye Headland went specific here and cited a specific episode of the Clone Wars that, again, at the time in 2013 was the end of the Clone Wars. It was the end of the Clone Wars, obviously in real life used to explain why Ahsoka's not in Revenge of the Sith because she walks away. But from the story perspective, do you have any rub your hands together thoughts on what she means by that, the influence of that episode in particular on the Acolyte?
I don't know. I'm gonna be honest, I haven't watched that episode in a while. I know it's a big episode for the Clone Wars, but to me, I was like, she likes Ahsoka, cool. But even more so, she likes Asajj Ventress, which she talks about, and she's very inspired by the Night Sisters, which she then goes on to say she doesn't have any Night Sisters in the show, but she just really likes them, which makes me laugh a little bit because as we've been talking to this conversation, she said that a lot. Like, oh, I like this character, so I cast them in this. Oh, I like this person, so I did this. Oh, I wanted a cantina, so I put a cantina. But the thing that kind of stuck out to me is the quote from her where she said, in this era, what does an underdog look like, even if they're the bad guy? And I found that so interesting because it's our nature to root for the underdog, I think. In any type of situation, we tend to, I find myself, any football game I'm watching, baseball game, whatever, if someone's losing, I'm always rooting for them. Just because it's a fun thing to do. You're like, come on, can they make it back? Can you get that moment where they come back and they save the day? But to think of it the other way around, like, hey, the bad guy's not the hero here, then, not the person you're cheering for, the underdog, I don't know how I feel about that because I don't want to root for the bad guy, but I'm going to find myself rooting for the bad guy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. You're not going to root for the Sith, though.
I don't know. It depends. I was rooting for Kylo Ren halfway through the sequel trilogy, and I left Force Awakens hating him.
Yeah, but you weren't rooting for him to kill people.
No,
you were rooting for him to
no.
refine himself.
Yeah, I guess it kind of you get into a scenario where it depends what the motivation of the bad guy is. Like, if the bad guy's been wronged and their whole village has been slaughtered and they're looking for revenge, you kind of understand where they're coming from to an extent. Like, I would probably draw a parallel to Daredevil when you watch that first season of Daredevil with what's his name? Vincent D'Onofrio, who plays Kingpin.
Mhm.
And the first season, you're like, you kind of feel sorry for Kingpin. You're like, oh wow, like he had a really crappy childhood. Like I feel so bad for him. And then he starts like beating that person to death, and you're like, okay, he's like a bad guy. Like we don't feel that bad for him. So like it really depends, like to what extent how bad this person is. Like what have they done? But
Yeah.
there is a little bit of, in recent years, a need to root for the anti-hero or for the bad guy, and I'm wondering if she's gonna be the type of person that's gonna challenge that viewpoint of, like, are the Jedi that good? Or are they not that great? Because that's where
Yeah.
it seems like it's going.
I agree. I have built out my theory that I started not long ago. And
You have. Is that the
yeah.
twin theory?
No, that was just thrown
Oh.
out there because of the
The
poster and because
Yeah.
I've seen movies successfully use twins to help hide a whodunit. You know, it happens. It would be nothing new. So I'm actually hoping it's not twins. Plus the Star
Mhm.
Wars twin thing, you know. I'll be fine if it is. But here's where I'm going. I think when this interview came out, I don't know when it was conducted, but it came out in March, and
I would assume probably Celebration.
it was before, huh?
I said I'd assume it was Celebration probably. They
No,
probably
it
did
came out
this.
it came
No,
out
I'm
this
saying
past
they
March.
interviewed her around Celebration, they held on to it.
Oh, really? Hmm.
They could've.
Well, either way, it came out before we got any of the trailers, and
Sure.
I wonder if it just felt safer for her to, like, tell us this, because I actually think she may, if my theory's right, she may have really blown the lid off this. Now, this might be completely wrong, so I'll just say it. So, wrong Jedi, you have Barriss Offee committing these crimes, setting up Ahsoka to look like she committed them.
Mhm.
So I'm thinking about it, and we got this new teaser, and May in that clip is saying, like, you have to believe me, it wasn't me. And remember last week I was talking about how, you know, we saw that young Jedi who looks like one of our patrons, Joey Sack, and his eyes go black from in front of these witches, and it looks like he's like falling to his knees as though he's being possessed, or like, you know, taken over by this witchcraft. I can't help but think that the Sith have tapped into that and are using it to make good people do bad things, to create this public distrust for the Jedi as
Create
step
chaos.
one of taking them down. Now,
Mm.
I think back to, I think it was the second trailer where we see what clearly looks like May walking away from a lightsaber on the ground while picking up her blade and walking out of the room. Then think about that fight clip that we see of her facing off against Carrie Ann Moss. It's hand-to-hand combat. So it's Master Indara versus May. Indara doesn't know May, but May knows Indara. So that's an element of this. But May it looks like she keeps trying to use the Force to do something to get Indara's lightsaber. I think whatever May is doing is she's being possessed, sort of controlled by that witchcraft, employed by the Sith to frame Jedi to look like they're killing people. And that's why she gets that lightsaber and leaves it behind, so people think that Jedi killed whoever that person is that died. I think it's going to be sort of these setups used to take down the Jedi as what May's purpose is, and then the Sith obviously is there to swoop in and try to take over. So that's
Oh, that's
where
what I
I'm.
said. I said she was leaving a lightsaber behind, like, she was just leaving it behind, taking the knife.
But I think she's leaving it behind as evidence to set somebody up for committing a crime they didn't commit. That's what
So
I
you
think.
think that 'cause the lightsaber that's left behind is the one from the poster that looks like Indara's. You think she murders Indara?
I don't know. I don't either that, or if that's her lightsaber, she got it somehow and left it at this crime scene to make it look like Indara killed this person. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, you're saying she's framing Indara.
Right. Yeah. Because
Oh, okay.
like what
Yeah, I see that.
what
Yeah,
else
yeah.
from the Wrong Jedi would inspire this other than like, well, did May walk away from the Order? Like none of the dialogue about May makes it sound that way. It sounds like she was my former student and that they think she's turned to the dark side. So it sounds like she was manipulated in some way. It doesn't sound like somebody who, like Ahsoka, said, "You guys didn't trust me, I'm out." So what other elements of the Wrong Jedi can inspire this so specifically that Leslye Headland's going to cite that episode? To me, it's a frame job, setting somebody else up for a crime that they didn't commit. And now that I think about the stuff we've seen so far, and you got May saying, "I didn't do it, you have to believe me," her walking away from a crime scene, I think there is this witchcraft being used to make these, naive, potentially vulnerable people, like maybe they harped on her because she wasn't in the Jedi Order anymore, but they knew she was powerful. Maybe it's as simple as that. She's an acolyte not by choice, but by this sort of brainwashing or this power. And that's the plot ultimately is to create galactic distrust in the Jedi to begin the steps of taking them down. And then Palpatine's the one
which is already starting because CORMIER, Manny Jacinto, not Chiquito, Jacinto,
Right.
is already saying openly in the teasers, like, the Jedi aren't who they say they are.
Right.
They aren't the great people they think they are.
And
so it's pulling those strings.
He's a former smuggler. He doesn't appear to be force sensitive. He's the everyman. He's the citizen's voice, and he's giving the point of view. It's like very smart writing. If this is what's happening, like give the point of view of the people. Like we got to check in with the people to see what they think of the Jedi, because we have the Jedi versus the Sith, and they don't know that the Sith are back. But we have to check in with the citizens to see ultimately what they think. Because if they stop believing in the Jedi, then nothing else matters, to quote James.
Yeah, I mean, it would explain why there are witches in the show. It would also tie it back to Leslye Headland's love of Night Sisters, what Dave Filoni just did with Ahsoka, where they were giving powers to these zombie troopers while also using magic to give special powers to Morgan Elsbeth. So it's like tying back to that kind of mystical thing that Lucasfilm seems to be going for. I guess my other theory might be that the Sith are specifically working with the witches to make that happen. So the reason that they're there is they're hearing powers, but the damage is already done. Like the bargain has already been made with whoever's in power with these witches. Like, hey, if you help us, we'll leave you alone. We won't touch you. We'll leave your coven alone. Or the Jedi wronged them and the Sith are going to them saying, "Do you want your revenge? We'll help you get that. Help us out." Kind of like a Thrawn situation. Like, you help me, I'll help you.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Because you have to think the only way to get back at the Jedi is to either have powers yourself or hurt their reputation.
Yeah, I think especially with the Sith, rule of two, they're not going to outnumber the Jedi, especially at this point in time. They need to find other ways to take them down. What was Palpatine's? Using politics to create the army that he ultimately used to kill the Jedi. At this level, in the early stages, we got to turn the public on them. If the public turn on them, they're finished. And I think that's what's going on here. So we'll see. But we have more segments to get to, more to do as we roll on here on TRB. So again, thank you to everybody for joining us. Before we get to our next segment, Lacey, I see we have a super chat that I feel like we need to get to.
We do, and it's from Christy. Hey, Christy, how's it going? She said, road tripping with my hot girlfriend. Oh, okay. All right, Christy.
All right.
But still catching the live show, kinda. Love you guys as always. We love you too. Hope you guys are having a blast.
Yeah, don't watch while you're driving.
Yeah, please don't do that. Although John texts when he drives, so I don't know who's
thank you very much.
much.
Who texts when he drives?
You text when you drive.
When have you ever seen me drive, first of all?
You've been texting when driving before, and I'll be like, "Don't do that. Don't text." And then you'll be like, "Don't tell me what
Have
to
you
do."
ever been in a car with me when I've driven a car?
No, because you've said something to me before texting, and I'll call you and be like, "What are you talking about?" And you're like, "Oh, sorry, I'm texting and driving."
I was at a red light.
There it is. I was at a red light. There it is. There's the
Yeah.
excuse.
That's right.
Not an excuse. Christy, don't watch and drive, please. Do not do
Thanks,
that.
Christy. All right, let us take it to our next segment, which is always a fun one, and we call that
Mhm.
Will of the Force.
I fear nothing, for all is as the Force wills it.
All right, guys. I don't have my fancy intro this time around, so don't worry. You're not going to be getting.
If you like what we do here at TRB, go to patreon.com/.
All right, guys. Will of the Force. Pretty simple concept. Will they, won't they scenarios, and we give our answers and discuss accordingly. But before I get to that, this is a chance for you to be part of the show. Head over to www.patreon.com/TRB podcasts. Starting at $5 a month, you can support the show, what we're doing here. We've just recently expanded into another show, a pop culture show on Mondays called Nerdy and Nice. And you guys help us do that, upgrade our equipment, go on trips, and just be a part of the resistance and a part of our community. Perks get great as you go up in the tiers. Pick which one's right for you, or you can follow us for free to see what we're doing before you make your choice. And that's cool too. But one of the ways that you can be part of the show is through Will of the Force. You guys submit your questions during the week, and some of you get featured on the show. So kicking off this segment, we have our red carpet commander. Have we done this since we updated the tier names? I don't think we have.
Yeah, we have.
Oh, we have. Okay.
I think we have.
I'm just an idiot. Red carpet commander Ryan War. What up, Ryan? I see you in the chat. He said, "Will the Acolyte be a success? Viewership, critically, and with fans?" John?
Yes, it will. I think, like I was saying before,
All three, you say? Yes, yes, yes? Because oftentimes
think-
these things don't sync up.
I think people are going to watch this show because I think there are Star Wars fans who just love dark side stuff.
Yeah.
I also think, like I was saying before, about just from a visual perspective, I think this show is going to look of the best Star Wars live action shows because you're getting the production value of an Andor, but with more Star Wars stuff in it.
Mhm.
And critically, I think it's going to do really well because I dare any critic to slam the first ever show or movie created by a woman in Star Wars. And that's not even like, has nothing to do, like the show itself in a vacuum, I think is going to be critically praised. But even if there is someone who doesn't like it, they're not going to put themselves out there and be like, "Oh, it stinks," because then they're going to be called, sexist and stuff like that. So I think the show is going to do really well. For its own merit, it will do well. But also, anyone who doesn't like it, because there are critics who just don't like Star Wars, and they go out there and they slam Star Wars all the time. I think they'll take a backseat on this one. That's just my guess. And then audiences, I think we are going to love it. I think this show is going to be like really fun, but also dark. And it's, like I said, it's going to look great, but it's going to make us like maybe question the Jedi a bit more than we already have with what happened in the prequels. But it's also going to make us more curious about what's going on with the Sith and the dark side. And we're going to hopefully learn things that we didn't know before. And it's going to help enrich how we look at what Palpatine did. And that's where I'm thinking here with this show. So I think it's going to check all the boxes. I think the Acolyte's going to do really, really well.
I agree with you. I think it will do well. It's hard to argue a Star Wars show that has lightsabers in it. I think the fact that it has lightsabers in it, it's about the Jedi, there's a Wookiee in it. There's so many, like you said, like familiar things that people that aren't diehard fans are going to want to get involved in. Do I think it's going to do gangbusters like Mandalorian season 1 with Baby Yoda? No. I think that moment is such like a special over the top moment at the time that it came out. It's going to be hard chasing that, like a Baby Yoda.
Do you mean like fans loving it, or do you mean like viewership? Where like
I meant the way that Baby Yoda took over the world, not just in viewership, but
oh
like it was
oh
everywhere, and
yeah
everybody and anybody knew what it was, even if they didn't watch the show.
transcended
They knew,
yeah
yeah, they knew nothing about Star Wars. I think that that's not going to happen with this show. To be honest, I think it's going to be great. I can't wait. I'm getting so hyped for it. I think the viewership's going to be good. I think critically they're going to love it because it's, darker, edgier. The acting's great. And I think fans are going to love it. And I think you're going to have fans, and I use the term loosely. You're going to have people that say that they're Star Wars fans go on and on and on about how they don't like it. And I, once again, question those people and say, are you really a Star Wars fan, or do you like one movie?
Mhm.
And that's okay too. But are you like a constant fan of these things? I don't know if that's the case. But I think it will be a success. I really do.
yeah
Right. Heading into the next question. Before I do that, I just want to remind everybody in the chat, get your questions in for the next segment, Ask the Resistance. You can send them in the chat with hashtag Ask the Resistance so that I
let's
could
go. What do you got?
anything about Star Wars. All up to you guys. All right. The next question is, will Star Wars release Attack of the Clones in theaters like The Phantom Menace when it reaches its 25th anniversary in 2027? John, Phantom Menace had quite the return on investment this past week, or the past week or so in the theater. I don't think they expected it to do as well as it did. Do you think they're going to do that with Attack of the Clones as well?
I think not a marathon. I think every Star Wars movie is going back to theaters in
Releasing
2027.
everything back in theaters.
Ev-
Spider-Man's, yeah.
But I mean, for the 50th anniversary, I think they're gonna do like every movie gets a weekend run, sort of like when the special edition came out in like January. It was a New Hope. February it was Empire. March it was Return of the Jedi. I think for the 50th anniversary of Star Wars, because Lucasfilm, they love to celebrate anniversaries, including
do.
like
They do.
22 years ago, Attack of the Clones came out. We're like, all right, it's 22. Can we wait a couple years?
Yeah.
So I think for the 50th anniversary of Star Wars, I think everything's going to be happening. We're going to have, think about it. We're going to have already gotten 2 new Star Wars movies that came out. Mandalorian and Grogu is going to have been out, and the Rey movie is going to have been out for a few months. 2027 could be an absolute monster year for Star Wars. And I think they're going to make sure whenever they get the opportunity to tap into the most popular element of Star Wars, which is the original trilogy, no matter what you say, it's hard to top it. They're gonna do that. They're gonna be 50th anniversary merch everywhere, just like it was for 40th for in 2017. And I think they'll re-release all the movies in theaters where you can like pick and choose and not have to sit there for 28 hours or whatever people did, which still my feet hurt even just thinking about it. And you're sitting in a chair and my feet hurt thinking about it. But I think it will come out, but I think all the movies are coming out. I don't know. What do you think?
I agree with you. This so far we're in agreement. Will force halfway through. I know we're so boring. But I think it's a great agreement because we're both hyped about these two things. I think they are going to release Attack of the Clones in theaters. They've had such a good return on the movies that have gone to the theater. Why wouldn't you? It's such a simple thing to do. It's already made. You just play it. People show up. And plus it's a fun thing. People, Disney loves their events. They love their fan events, and this is no different. All right, heading into the next question, we have a Patreon submission from Silver Screen Spice Runner Neil Shaw.
Neil,
what up, Neil? He said, will the Acolyte be a test case for more shows or movies to be set in the High Republic? I'm going to say no. I don't think it will. I think it's just its own thing right now. I don't know if they're I wouldn't say that they're testing for the High Republic. I think they would just be doing it. But if it does really well, I could see them continuing on with the Acolyte and maybe expanding and adding more people from those stories in the show. But I don't see them doing a High Republic owned show. Right, John? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you. Short answer, I think the High Republic is so fleshed out with the books, and that this is going to be used as a bridge. I could see animated High Republic stuff happening one day to fill gaps in between some of the books. I didn't read the High Republic. I had a hard time getting into it. I have a hard time. Like I mean, I'm completely open about that. If you want to talk about Star Wars canon novels, I'm not your guy. I have a hard time reading Star Wars. I need to see Star Wars, unless it's the behind the scenes stuff. I read all those books. I love those books, especially the J.W. Rinsler ones. But yeah, I don't think this is sort of like, let's see how we can do with the High Republic. I think is we have an opportunity here to bridge these eras and tell a really cool story in untapped space. Let's do that, and that's what Headland pitched, and that's what we're going with. So,
good points. Good points.
thank you. Though,
All
man.
right, and our last question is: will the Acolyte? We're doing Acolyte filled. Only one question's on Acolyte. Kind of like that. Will the Acolyte uncover secrets about the Jedi that will alter how we view the religion moving forward? What do you think, John?
Yes, it will.
You do? You think that? Really?
Yeah, I do. Because you gotta.
Wow.
Because if what Leslye Headland's saying is true, and it's sort of like she's turning the table, and like this show is about the rise of the Sith, there has to be something real that the Jedi are flawed in, and it's not just the Jedi getting attacked by the evil entity. The Jedi have to be exposed for something. And we got that in the prequels, which was sort of their dogmatic views and getting so, by the book of this code that they built up over thousands of years, to the point where it's almost became, it looked like it was really not a good time to be a Jedi in the prequels. Like Mace Windu did not look like he was ever having fun, and he was one of the bosses. If the boss isn't having a good time, nobody's having a good time. So
not a good look.
Like being a Jedi did not seem fun in the prequels. I'll just say that. It seemed like it was like a really stuffy, bad time in a really boring building with a lot of books. Just like and make sure you don't look at any girls when you go out, fellas. It's just like, no thanks. I don't want to be a priest. So I think that something's going to be uncovered. I don't think it's going to be any, like, Leslye Headland's not stupid and Lucasfilm's not stupid. They're not going to uncover anything that's going to upend the idea of what a Jedi should be that George Lucas created, but it's going to be something like they messed something up, or they took some path the wrong way that they thought was right. It wasn't going to be like the Jedi did bad things on purpose, but something will be uncovered that they either made a mistake and they had to cover it up.
Cracks in the armor.
It's going to be something. So yeah, I say yes.
Wow, I didn't even consider those things until you just said them right now. So I have to give you credit for that, because I went into this being like, no, why would they? But I actually, you've turned me to agree with you. I think this will, and the reason because I know, right? May 16th, 2024. No, the reason because as you were talking, it made me think of the behind the scenes reel with JJ, where he says that his character is constantly fighting these emotions that he's having, and he's constantly trying to keep it together and hide what he's feeling, and no one understands what's going on inside. And to me, that is very much the Anakin struggle. That is very much any character that is a part of the Jedi that either falls to the dark side or doesn't accomplish their goals in their mission of being a Jedi is due to someone that's emotional, someone that has too much going on inside, turmoil, tension, whatever you want to call it. And when he was explaining his character being that way, I remember when I was watching it, and I totally forgot to bring it up now, but I remember being like, oh no, he's gonna like snap at some point. He's got to, right? Or maybe he snaps like a Luke Skywalker and drives May away, and puts her on her path.
That's interesting. I never thought about it that way. So you think it's possible that Master Soul has like just a moment and he like
I think he snaps like Luke Skywalker, and it would also draw
wow.
parallels to The Last Jedi of like,
That would
hey,
be that would
Jedi
be
can
interesting.
snap.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. I saw him as this sort of just like white horse, like perfect master Jedi. But maybe you're
But
right.
in the teasers and stuff, you see him having these ranges of emotion and like not put together. And when he's in the fight scenes, especially when they're in that forest with the big bugs, gross. They show shots of him like kind of on the ground, like in that kind of superhero pose with his lightsaber lit. He looks dirty and sweaty, and he is fighting for his life. And it just makes me think like when he says things in the teasers of like, I'll be the one to bring her in. Let me bring her in.
Right.
It feels like he regrets things, like he is responsible for the
Yeah.
path that she's on.
Yeah, I like that. And also,
Mhm.
was it in that clip where Leslye Headland was speaking and she said, I don't know, I haven't seen many actors do this where they do something, but then they're also heartbreaking. She's the word
Yes.
heartbreaking.
Yeah.
So that's
He
interesting.
has
Yeah.
so many emotions. Yeah, and I forgot to bring this up earlier, so I'm gonna bring it in quickly before we get into Ask the Resistance. We did want to bring up that there were character posters released outside somewhere for the
That dude
Acolyte.
does not know that he's viral right now on this
I
bike.
know, he's just
So
riding his bike.
so for
I
our
think it's
audio
a
listeners
rental bike too.
for our audio listeners, there's 5 character posters in a loop on some wall, and yeah, I assume this is LA. I don't know.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
this dude is just on his little like city bike with his little helmet and his little sunglasses,
He's
just
just out
having a
for a
good
nice
time.
ride.
He's like, I'm gonna ride my bike exactly on this line in the cement, and I'm gonna have a great day. And then some Star Wars fan walks up and snaps his picture. Now this dude is everywhere, and he has no idea, and I love
Imagine seeing that, you're like, "Oh."
it.
He's like
They should
skipping work or something.
yeah, yeah. I mean, if Brian Ward's not busy, he can make a character poster for this guy on his bike. And I know Brian's busy, that's why I say that.
Yeah.
But
So,
yeah,
the
what do you think
character
of these?
Yeah, the character posters are Master Soul, Jackie Lan, right?
Yep.
Kelnaka, then who's the next one?
Indara.
Oh, is it Indara? I can't
Y-
tell her mood is.
Yep.
And then May, and then it repeats.
Yeah. So
So it's interesting because they do a nice thing with the swipe of the lightsaber that cuts through the bottom of the poster, which I really appreciate. It's super cool. Although I
mhm.
do notice that in this poster and the previous poster that
Did I lose Lacey? I believe we might have lost Lacey, so she will be back at some point in time.
So
There she is. Yeah.
I clicked the back button. So anyway, as everybody was waiting for me to reply.
I just felt like Walter Cronkite. Like, I believe we've lost contact with Neil Armstrong. We'll see if we can get them back on the other side of the
There's
moon.
like these so I have like a gamer mouse because they're fast, and it has this little side click thing that I never never use. But every once in a while, my thumb will just kind of brush it and will send me back
Ladies
a
and
page.
gentlemen, I have the great misfortune of reporting this. We have lost Lacey Gilleran.
The best is that there's a picture up, so nobody knew
That's why I didn't
that
see
I
you when you
disappeared.
yeah. But anyway, what do you make of these? And
Anyway, what I
why is Yord Fandar not on them?
he isn't on them, so that's why I wasn't sure if that he was the 4th one, but you're saying it's Indara, and I see that now. Um, but yeah, so the posters, they're cutting in this kind of swooping motion, which makes sense. But on the previous poster, they're using that arch kind of shape a lot. Like they used it in the other poster where they had it kind of framing all the other backgrounds. So
think
I
it's the
can't help but
ring.
think like, is it supposed to be the ring of the Acolyte?
Like, like on the logo, they use the O and it's like stands out. Like it's
Yeah. What do you think that stands for, that ring?
I think it
We all
has
have 7 days to live.
no, I thought that what's his name? Master Soul has to take it and bring it
See,
to a volcano and throw it
see
in.
the arches here? See how it's
Yeah.
like showing this arch shape?
Yeah.
I just it stands out to me on this poster too. Like it's a very deliberate choice. And also, what does it show on the bottom? Yeah, so same thing, but it's like this arch shape.
Mhm.
The other thing that stuck out to me is Kelnaka, the Wookiee Jedi, is naked in this poster. Like, I get it, he's Chewie. Chewie walks around no clothes on, but for seeing Kelnaka in his robes this entire time, even on, like, press tours, he's been wearing these Jedi robes. He's now not. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
but why is he naked?
More like Kelnada, right?
You remembered. John tweeted, he was like, if I remember this, I'm going to put it in the show. Well, he remembered.
You can
There
put the
it
good stuff on the show, folks.
So what are your thoughts on the posters?
Yeah, the only thing I could think of is that for a show that's dark side heavy, they're like, we're going to show you all the good guys plus May, who probably is a good guy. So, and it looks like they're all in these action poses. So it's almost like, to me, they're using the posters to show that maybe the Jedi are being forced outside of their comfort level, and they're like in this weird like attack mode, it looks like, because it doesn't look like Jackie Lawn doesn't look like she's like in defense. It looks like she's in the middle of a fight. It's just interesting that a show that's supposed to be so rooted in the dark side is presenting us all the light side characters. Like, this is part of the mystery is in the marketing, is not showing us the real meat of this.
Yeah, this is probably me dumbing it down, and I know that. I feel like this marketing is just very straightforward marketing. I think they're going, hey, Jedi and lightsabers sell tickets to things because people go, oh, that new Jedi show.
Yeah.
And so this is out on a street where anybody, their brother, their uncle, their sister, their grandma, whoever will see it and say, hey, I just saw a poster today for a new Star Wars show. I think that's what this is.
Yeah.
I don't think that it's anything that clever. And I say that knowing that I love when things are clever. Like when Barbie did all their marketing last year, that was like, oh God, is that a case study for beautiful marketing? This to me is very straightforward. It's, hey, look at all these Jedi characters, and they threw Kelnaka up there with no clothes on because they want people to think it's Chewie. Because
you think so?
Yeah, I think they want people to be like, oh, look, it's Chewbacca. Just like they did with Baby Yoda. And they said, hey, is that Yoda? And then you'd go, no, it's not Yoda. If any one of my family members saw this, they'd say, I saw a picture of Chewbacca yesterday. No, Aunt so-and-so, it was not Chewbacca. But they did their job because they got you talking about it.
They're like, why is Chewbacca wearing Snooki's haircut from 2009?
It's more like an Ariana Grande haircut from like, I don't know, 08. That's like the 08 Ariana Grande.
Was that when she was licking those donuts?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I destroyed all my Ariana Grande records after that moment.
My favorite is when you go back and watch how she had to go on Good Morning America to apologize, and she looks the least apologetic ever. She's like, hi, yeah, I'm like so sorry. I I made a bad choice. But like she looks like she could not care less because it's dumb that she's even at this Good Morning America apologizing.
All right.
Yeah. So now we're gonna answer a couple questions in Ask the Resistance.
I've been wondering, what are midi-chlorians?
Shut up, Anakin!
Ma, the meatloaf!
God. I'm just checking your blood for infections. Just shut up. It's going to be dead in 20 minutes.
He's such a typical kid, though. Like, what is that? What is that doing?
Oh,
where's it going? What's going
no
on?
doubt about it. Yeah. Once I had kids and then you go back and watch The Phantom Menace, you're like, man, George Lucas nailed it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Ask the Resistance. We got 3 questions. So thank you to those who submitted them. We are going to answer them right now. First up, Kenny Craley, who I think has asked this before. Kenny, are you just doing copy and paste now? Are you copy and pasting us? If you didn't ask this, I apologize. But Kenny said, hey, TRB, love the show every week. John and Lacey, thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. Also, Kenny's wearing a Superman shirt in his profile picture. So I'm curious if he's been checking out Nerdy and Nice, because we talked a lot about Superman last week. I'm very excited about it. So Kenny, I want to hear your thoughts on that. But Star Wars question from Kenny is, which eras do you want to see Star Wars publishing tackle next in canon, be it books and comics? Hard to say. I check in with comics if the characters and topic I feel are interesting enough. But I don't really read a lot of the canon novels. I get caught up on what's important for the canon aspects of them. So it's hard for me to pick an era for them to explore. But so I don't know. How about something just completely unknown? They
I was
did
gonna
that
say after
sort of
sequel trilogy, like way out of the way.
post sequel trilogy way out of the way. They can do that, so they can go way, way back.
Mhm.
My guess is it will have something to do with upcoming movies because they like to put supplemental material around things that make money. So
Mhm.
whether that's because Adam Christopher was supposed to do a Mandalorian book, and
I was just about to bring that up, and then they
oh, okay,
canceled it.
yeah, they canceled that.
That
Maybe
was
they
Gina Carano, I think.
oh, it could be. So
I think
maybe if the Mandalorian and Grogu does well, we see more Mando adventures via books or comics. I think that's a possibility. I think the Dave Filoni stuff he's doing with Ahsoka and all that is probably ripe for more stories. The adventures of Ezra after Ahsoka before we see him return. And then maybe you're right, Lacey. Maybe some post sequel trilogy stuff, even like post Rey movie stuff. Like they can go anywhere, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think post sequel trilogy would be cool, especially if it's like in between where we get the next movie. Just kind of fill in those stories, see what's going on. Um, I am a big person of behind the scenes books, like we talked about earlier, John.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting for that Ryan Johnson photography book from The Last Jedi because he had his camera with him and he took pictures like all day, every day at The Last Jedi sets. Supposedly there's a book coming out this fall about it from Ryan Johnson. I would love that kind of stuff. Behind the scenes books about each movie.
Oh,
Uh,
sure.
about, I would love a book from Dave Filoni talking about his creative process. Like
But
what
he's
he's
saying canon though.
I know, but I'm going a little outside of his question a little bit because I feel
What?
like we have talked about this.
Oh, that's fair. All
So
right, cool. Kenny, thank you, buddy. Appreciate it, man.
Mhm.
Kenny's always like commenting, sharing, and submitting questions. So it means a lot. Thanks a lot, Kenny.
The best.
All right, let's go to this guy who I don't like as much as Kenny, Mike Rumori. Go. I'm just kidding, buddy. Mike is the man. Also, Mike said, "Do you think the lips not syncing with the audio has anything to do with language barriers since he speaks Japanese in all his interviews?" Lacey.
Are you talking about JJ? The lips aren't syncing with all of the characters. It's not just JJ. But he's Korean. He's not Japanese. And yeah, no, I don't think that's it. It's just because they're trying to be clever and be like, we're gonna use this quote here, and if we put them on screen for 2 seconds, you're not gonna recognize that they're not saying what we're telling you that they're saying.
Yeah.
And it's a really bad job. If you go to the previous teaser at the very beginning, they took whoever says the quote that's like, last night a Jedi was murdered. They did a sloppy job with the first bit of last night. And if you listen, you have to wear headphones. If you listen back to it with headphones on, you can hear the next syllable come in at the end of last night. So it's like last night, and then there's a
Yeah,
space,
I heard that
cause
too. You brought it
drama,
up. Yeah,
and then goes into it's
good
just
call.
sloppy. It's just
Yeah.
sloppy editing, and I think it's because they were rushing to get it done. And look, I love editing. Like my dream job would to be to make movie trailers. Like I love that stuff. So it just bothers me when I see things that I'm like, oh man, why did they do that? Because there are
Mm.
so many really great trailers that are like beautiful filmmaking, and even like fan film trailers and fan stuff that I see online. I'm like, oh, the transitions between people swipe like using lightsabers to like different characters and using different sounds and beats to create transitions. So when I see something put out by the official accounts that like has these kind of sloppy mistakes, it drives me nuts. And that might be I might be a terrible person for saying
I
that, but
I feel like there's the like cost cutting everywhere now, especially in the like in the entertainment industry, in addition to everywhere else. Like they're just
yeah. And
um
To be fair, I did show the trailer to my husband, who's also a video professional, and I asked him, "What do you think about the syncing?" And he was like, "Oh my gosh, it's all off." He's like, "None of these things are right." And I was like, "Oh, thank God, I'm not like
But some
being."
is deliberate, like like you say. So and his character's speaking English as far as I know. So it'll he'll have a heavy accent, of course, but everything should match up with what he's saying.
Insane. He learns his lines in English, but he obviously prefers to speak in Korean, which is
It just
understandable.
wild. Yeah,
Yeah.
really the effort he had
Thanks for the
had to put
question,
in.
Mike.
Yeah. Thank you, Mike.
Sorry,
Appreciate it.
sorry for the tangent.
All right, 2 more quick ones here. We have Tom Favada. Thanks, Tom. Appreciate it. Tom said, "Do you think the Acolyte will treat seasons as standalone seasons?" No, I think the Acolyte is going to be a well-connected narrative, however long it goes. I did see Leslye Headland say she made sure that this season felt like a complete story, but
Yes.
that it
Yep.
can continue. So,
Room for growth.
but I took his question as standalone, sort of like American Horror Story. Like, here's the Acolyte, and then this happens in the Acolyte season 1, but then in season 2, it's different characters. I think this is all going to be very connected, just like all the other shows.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
And we have 2 more.
2 more. We got a super
right.
chat while you're talking.
All right, let's do Mad Fam. Ask the Resistance, how many Jedi do you think will die in the Acolyte? Let's just pick numbers. We won't
Just
say
numbers?
anything. We'll just each pick a number. Don't
4.
explain why. Just pick a number. What?
4.
4. How many Jedi
1,
will
2,
die?
3, 4.
All right, I'm going to Price is Right you and say 5.
5.
Yeah. All right.
Really? Why?
Because then if it's over that, I win.
Wait, are we doing that rule?
Closest without going over?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then I choose 6.
I pick 7.
I'm just joking. I stick with 4. I'm going
All
with
right.
4.
I'll go with 5. All right. Thank you, Mad Fam. Appreciate it. All right.
All right. And then we're going to
Yeah.
end with super chat.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, of course, as I always say, wouldn't be a show without Freezy2324. What up, man? He said, "How has Mark Hamill never voiced an animated version of Luke given his voice work history?" He has. He did himself in a Forces of Destiny short a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And it, to me, as one of the amazing, very big Mark Hamill, I was sweating when I met him, fans, it was not good because his voice has aged like a fine wine, and you can't do a young version of yourself when you have an older voice. And
Yeah.
I'm not just saying that for him. I'm saying that for anybody. Like Harrison Ford and Indiana Jones took me right out because it sounds like older Harrison. It doesn't sound like younger Harrison.
Yeah, too, sitting in there. Yeah.
So I would love to see Mark do animated stuff, like maybe him doing the Jedi Temple when he was older with Ben Solo or something like that, where you could use his older voice, or maybe be a Force ghost in later movies, maybe with Rey. But I can't see him doing younger Mark.
Yeah, that
Younger.
was. I don't know if Breezy's seen Force of Destiny, but that was the episode on Endor with Leia, I think.
Training with Leia, where that big kind of.
So it was still young Luke. Like, it wasn't even older Luke, which would have made sense. It was young Luke with the voice of old Luke. It was very strange. But
yeah, I appreciated why they did it because they wanted to let Mark do it, but it was just they couldn't, I don't know, run it through something. Run everything else through things.
Yep.
But thank you so much, Freezy.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for those questions and for submitting them and listening to us chat about them. We want to know what you think about them, too. So let us know in the comments or hit us up on social media or, of course, our Discord on Patreon. We are heading to Patreon in just a couple minutes here for our Q&A. So if you are a patron, hop over there and the fun will continue. The party rolls on, and sometimes it gets a little crazy on the Q&As. Oh, we want to thank everybody for listening and watching and being a part of TRB. It means a great deal to us, so thank you all so much. However you take in the show, whether that's audio, video, Patreon, however, just spread the word. Tell your friends about TRB, your favorite Star Wars podcast, hopefully, and we'll continue to grow the base, and because our community is the best. I mean that. A special thank you to our Patreon movie star generals and silver screen spice runners, the generals Carmelo, John RISI, Jetta Rosewater, Frank Grande, Nick Kratz, Chris Morales, Brian Smith, Danny, Mike Rumore, Brendan McLaughlin, Sneaky Zebra, Dave Hornack, Jolton Jedi DiMaggio, and Colin Cormier. And the Silver Screen Spice Runners, David Probus, Neil Shaw, Kendall Gellner, Andrew Staley, Jeremy Myers, and the Fortworthian. And all of our patrons, all of our supporters, all of you. Thank you. We love you so much. We really appreciate it. We'll be back next week as we get closer to the Acolyte to talk more news and maybe have some discussion. We were going to do a fun discussion tonight, but it got sidetracked because of all the new Acolyte stuff that came out. But we'll get to that one soon.
Maybe some other surprises next week.
Have we talked about it? Do I even know? What are we talking about?
You might. You have to tune in to find out.
All right. Johnny Hoey for me on social media and a movie podcast just like the movies and Nerdy and Nice. Back at you on Monday. That's going to be a loaded show as well.
That
Lacey,
show's getting so wild that we have like our notes are too much. Like we have too many things to talk about.
A lot. Yeah.
Because it's just during the week we're sending each other stories and we both obviously have different tastes and things that we like or that we care about. So it's like this and then this and then this and then this. And then sometimes we send each other the same story. It's really fun. But guys, you can find me on social media at Lacey Gilleran and on TikTok at It's Lacey Gilleran. And follow TRB podcasts on everything too. We're starting to put up fun short videos and other things throughout the week to get your opinions and thoughts going into the episodes. So make sure to follow us there.
Yeah. And most importantly, keep having fun speculating on Acolyte. We'll see what this thing turns into. And we hope everyone has a great weekend. And we will see you next time right here on the Resistance broadcast. We'll see you around, kids.